In this video, I'm going to teach you a really important idea about defining your own objects. So what you're looking at on the screen right now, on the right-hand side, this is our blueprint for a new type of object called book. And you can tell because the name of the class is book. And you can see here on the left-hand side, I've got a main method where I'm creating a variable b whose data type is book. So that means that the variable b contains all of these variables because it's a book. It's got a number of pages and a title and an author. Do you remember the special name for this command? It starts with a C. It's about making a new object. I hope that you said constructor. So this is a special built-in method called the constructor, and its name is the same as the name of the class. It's the same as the data type. And you always use the keyword new. And what this does is it constructs a new book object. And what that means is it makes a copy of all of the variables that a book should have, and it assigns those variables to a new object that then gets saved inside B. Okay, so what we're going to learn today is about how you can make this constructor even more useful by defining your own. So right now it's kind of a pain because we have to set each of these book variables separately. We say book's author is L and book's title is My Big Life and so on. And then we've got another book. We run the constructor another time. And so now book 2's author is Mr. D and book 2's title is Home on the Range. Here's what I'm going to show you how to do. Instead of setting all of these separately, what if we could just give each of these values inside the parentheses, like as an input to the constructor? So we'll give the author first, and then a comma, and then the name of the book, and then a comma, and then the number of pages. So you'll see there's some red underlining right now because we haven't actually made a constructor that can do this. But that's what I'm going to show you how to do right now. So because we want to change how books work, we need to change the book blueprint. So here inside the book class, don't delete your book class. So here inside the book class, you want to still be between your curly braces, but we're going to create a new command. And it's got the same pattern that commands usually have. You've got like public and then void and then the command's name. The only difference is a constructor is special. And part of the way that Java knows that the constructor is special is you don't have a return value. You don't have int, you don't have void, you don't have anything at all. So you just say public, and then you have the name of the class itself. And then you're opening and closing parentheses, and then you're opening and closing curly braces. So this is what an empty template for your constructor would look like. Okay, so we want our constructor to take 3 inputs. We want a string as an input, and another string, and an int. And you can see that here because I've got 3 values separated by commas that are inside the parentheses for book. So what that means is inside the parentheses for my definition of the book command, I need to have 3 variables. The first variable needs to store the L value. The second variable needs to store My Big Life, and so on. So the first variable is going to be a string, and I'm just going to call it A. And then my second variable is a string, which I'll call B. And my third variable, let's look. My third variable here looks like it needs to hold an int. So I'm going to call this int C. Okay, so far what's happening is on the left-hand side here, when I run the book constructor, now what it's going to do is it's going to run this command that I'm creating right now. And the word L is automatically going to get saved inside A, and the title, My Big Life, is automatically going to get saved inside B, and so on. So the job of the constructor, what I'm about to say is the most important sentence in the video. The job of the constructor, right here, is to take those initial values and assign them to the variables up here. These variables are called attributes. So the most important job of the constructor is to do what this used to be doing over here. Instead of assigning all the starting values, we're going to give all the starting values to the constructor inputs, and then the constructor is going to say author should get assigned A, and title should get assigned B, and pages should get assigned C. So I'm taking the input starting values, and I'm taking each starting value and saving it inside the attribute for the actual book that we're constructing right now. So if I do that, you'll notice that the underlining has gone away, so there's no error here. And what this is going to do now is it's going to construct a new book with these starting values for these variables. So now that I've done that, so now I've changed the constructor. I've got to do it that same way everywhere. So here, let's do Mr. D and home on the range, and then 35 pages. It's a big book. So now, it was a little bit more complicated to define the constructor inside the book object, but now that it's defined, whenever we want to create a new book, it's much shorter and easier because we just say new book, and then we give it the list of starting values that we want it to have. Okay, let's do a self-test. I want you to add two things. First, I want to add a new attribute to books. I want to add a new variable to books. Not only should a book have a number of pages and a title and author, but I think the book should also have a price. So go ahead and pause the video and add something that will give all books a price. And then the second thing I want you to do is set the price of the book using the constructor here. So let's add one more. Let's say this one's going to be $11.99, and let's say my book is going to be 25 cents. So you see that these are red now. So what you're going to need to do is add the price as the last input, and go ahead and change the constructor so that it will take that input and assign it to your variable. So pause the video again, and I'll show you the solution in a minute. All right, here comes the solution. So I'm going to make, so let's see, it's a price, so that means it might have decimal places. So let's make it a double. Okay, so now books have another variable called price. But this price needs to get set somewhere. I need some way of giving price its starting value. And so that's what the constructor is doing. So because I added another input to the constructor, because it's after this comma here, I need another variable here, double D. And now we'll do price equals D. So that price, $11.99, automatically gets assigned to D. And then I take that price and assign it to price. If you're having trouble visualizing like exactly what happens step by step, stay in the video and I'll show you step by step what happens. If you're okay, then you can go ahead and stop the video now and go on to the exercises. Okay, so if you want to see more step by step what happens, let's do this. You can go ahead and click right in the margin here, right next to, right on the same line where I'm creating the book, and it should add a little red circle called a breakpoint. Now what you can do is click the play button, but don't play it. Instead, go down one and say debug. What debug is going to do is it's going to run the code, but when it gets to this line, it's going to pause. So right now I'm sitting on this line paused. And you can see what's going to happen step by step by pressing this button right here. It's down in the button panel. It's the second one over from the left. It's called Step Into. So we're just about to see step by step what happens when we run the command new book. So remember that we've got L and my, here, let's actually close this. So we've got L and my big life and the number of pages and the price. So here I'm going to step into, and you'll notice that the code has now jumped to the command. I'm now inside the book class. And so I'm going to step into one more time. And you see here, it says that the value for A is the word L, and the value for B is my big life. So you see that each of these, and you can actually see it by clicking directly on it. If you click on A and then hover over it, it says L. And if you click on B and hover over it, it says my big life. So you can see that these now contain values, and the values got assigned from the inputs here. Okay, so let's keep going. I'm going to step into. And so you'll see up here that actually the book, so the inputs have values, but the actual book variables don't. The number of pages right now is 0 because we haven't assigned it yet. And the title is null. The author just got assigned because we just ran this line of code, which takes the letter, takes what's inside A and assigns it to author. But the price is still 0. So right now we're paused on this line. We haven't run it yet. you can see that B on the right-hand side is the title My Big Life, but on the left-hand side it's null because we haven't saved it yet. So what we're about to do is save from the right to the left. We're about to take B, My Big Life, and save it inside title. Let's click and do it. There you go. So now you can see that it's been saved, and up here you can see that the title has now been set. So let's set pages. Right now pages is 0, but then as soon as I run this line, now pages has been saved. So again, the most important sentence in the video was the job of the constructor is to take these inputs and use them to save the starting values for all of the book variables up here. That's what the constructor does. That's in fact what it means to construct the book. It means to create these variables and give them their starting values. All right, so let's step, and now I'm done. So now I've run this command and it's finished. And you'll see down here where it says variables, you see that we've got a B variable because we are done running the constructor. And if I expand B, you can see inside the B variable, I've got a number of pages and a title and an author and a price. So let's do it all over again. Now I'm down here at a new constructor, so I'm going to click Step Into. And now we're constructing another book. And so the number of pages is back to 0 and the title is back to null because this is a totally separate copy of all of these variables because we're making a new one right now. And so this time we've got a totally different set of inputs, Mr. D and Home on the Range, and those all got assigned from the inputs here. So Mr. D, because it's the first thing in the parentheses, gets saved inside the first value here, and it happens automatically. But just because A, B, C, and D have values, we haven't actually saved those inside the book variables yet, because that's what the constructor does. So I'm going to run this line, and we've saved A inside author, and now you see we got an author. We're just about to save the title. You see there's no title, and now title, because we took B and saved it inside title. So now we're at the bottom. We've saved all the variables for for book, and now we're done. Click one more time. So now we've run B. We've run this constructor to make B. We've run this constructor to make B2, and you can see here, if I expand them, we've got B contains these variables. B2 also contains pages and title and author, but they've got different values. So we've got two objects that are both books, but with different values for all the book variables. And that's the big idea of the constructor. I hope that this was helpful.